And welcome everyone to our November monthly meeting for 350 Wisconsin. Really, thankful that for all of you who've showed up tonight. It's good to be together. The monthly meeting team is organized by the monthly meeting is organized by the monthly meeting team, and the members we have with us tonight are Lee Langford, Julia Isaacs, Kelly Kearns, and myself, Christina Cook. And then two of our other members who couldn't join us tonight are Marion Friedel and Susan Nossel. So especially if you're new, welcome. And before we get into the main part of our meeting, we'd like to do a land acknowledgement. So I'll turn it over to Lee.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Before we move into the rest of our meeting, let's ground ourselves by taking 2 deep breaths and reflect on how we're connected to the land beneath our feet. With humility and respect, I acknowledge I am speaking to you from sacred and continuously inhabited Ho-Chunk land, the Four Lakes region known to the Ho-Chunk people as Dejop. We are inspired by the Ho-Chunk's vision of stewardship and seek to emulate their relationship with nature as sacred.
Thank you, Lee. If we can move forward one slide. So this is our plan for the evening. We're still kind of in the opening, and again, an extra warm welcome to folks who are with us for the first time, and I guess an equally warm welcome to those of you who have been around a long time. We're grateful for all of you. If you are new, feel free to drop your name in the chat and where you're calling in from. And we want to make these meetings as welcoming as possible. And so to be welcoming and supportive for all people, regardless of background and identity. And so we should have our code of conduct shared in the chat. These are just the principles we want to embody in order to be that welcoming and supportive community. You can contact the monthly meeting team if you have any questions about that. So our plan for the rest of the evening, we'll have a brief message from one of our co-executive directors. We'll have a little time to chat and catch up with each other. We'll have our main speaker and some time for Q&A, and then announcements and breakout rooms at the end of the meeting. So with that, I think, Lee, you can take the slides down, and I'll turn it over to Stephanie.
Thank you, Christina. Hello, everyone. Emily and I wanted to take just a moment to acknowledge the disappointment and fear and frustration and so many other emotions that those of us here tonight and throughout our movement are feeling in the wake of the election. We know we all need to grieve and process and summon the strength to continue fighting for climate justice and a livable future. So we really want to thank you for showing up tonight. The work that we do together at 350 Wisconsin and 350 Wisconsin Action is more critical than ever, including and especially at the state and local levels where we have been very effective. So we wanted you to know that we are refusing to give in to despair. That is exactly what authoritarians want us to do. So we're going to continue giving our all and building a strong 350 Wisconsin and a strong climate movement together. And we hope you'll join us as we chart a way forward. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Stephanie. All right, I think next up we have, we're gonna do breakout rooms for about 8 minutes or so for people to catch up and chat with each other. Lee, are you able to share the slides just so folks can see the discussion question where
Yeah.
recommending.
Let me get that highlighted. Let's see. Okay.
So, and Julia, if you can get the breakout rooms set up to open in just a minute.
All right.
Okay, so yeah, as I said, we'll be splitting into breakout rooms of 3 to 4 people, so you can connect with folks in a smaller group. We'll have these open for about 8 minutes or so hopefully everybody has a couple minutes to share. The suggested discussion question is, where have you found comfort, strength, encouragement this week? But if you know the people that you're with and you end up talking about other things, that's okay too. So I'll pause the recording and ask Julia to open up the breakout rooms so that folks can have a chance to connect. I'm gonna restart the recording, and I'm going to ask Stephanie to introduce our speaker for the evening.
Thank you. Yes, it's my pleasure to introduce tonight's speaker, Katelynn Samuelsen. I've been very fortunate to work with Katelynn through the Wisconsin Climate Action Navigators Network, or WCAN. I've been so impressed with the inclusivity and creativity that her colleagues have brought to bear in creating a new coalition that is doing incredible work in a very short amount of time. Katelynn serves in the Wisconsin Office of Sustainability and Clean Energy as the Outreach and Engagement Specialist for the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant Program. The OSCE leads the state of Wisconsin in addressing the effects of climate change and ensuring Wisconsin reaches the goal of 100% carbon-free electricity by 2050. Katelynn supports statewide climate action planning and implementation, while striving to empower local priorities through relationship and coalition building. Prior to her current position, Katelynn worked for Renew Wisconsin and the state legislature, and she holds a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science and Environmental Studies from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. So welcome, Katelynn. We're so happy to have you join us tonight.
Thanks, Stephanie. Yeah, 350 has been a really excellent partner since our office was created. But you know, in my role, I've been working really closely with Stephanie and Emily, and a lot of other folks involved over the past year. So it's been a pleasure. I'm happy to be here tonight. I'll pull up my slides. Let's see. Oh no, it's coming. Okay, how's that? Good?
That looks great.
Okay, perfect. And I can still see you here, which is great. So, yes, hi everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm Katelynn. I'm going to talk super briefly about the history of our office, the background, some of the work that we've been doing since we were created in 2019. I'll give an overview of what the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant Program is, and then I'll talk more in depth about our community engagement approach and how you can get involved. So I know Maria Redmond, our director, has spoken here a few times, and I see a lot of familiar faces on here. So I apologize if this part is a little redundant, but it's good level setting information, especially as things are changing at the federal level, and there's a lot of question about what the future holds for our office too. We were created via executive order in 2019 with the goal, like Stephanie mentioned, of ensuring Wisconsin reaches 100% carbon-free electricity by 2050. So because we were created via executive order, our office isn't in statute, and with the change of administration, even if a state administration comes in that's supportive of climate and clean energy initiatives, they may have a different approach to reaching our goals and targets, and our office could, not be here. So it's really important to our director and to our team that the work that we do is able to continue on without OSCE, and that we spend our time and our effort supporting initiatives that are happening outside of our office, whether in other state agencies, but also importantly at the local level and with local governments. Wisconsin has a super active um, sector of non-governmental organizations like 350 that are doing a lot of this work. So we really work to support what non-governmental organizations, local governments, tribal nations are doing across the state so that this work will continue on, whether or not our office is here to help centralize and coordinate some of the work. So we do a good amount of outreach, which I'll talk about more in depth in a few minutes. We work across the whole state enterprise with all state agencies to help be the central point for the Inflation Reduction Act and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, which, as many of you know, brought historic amounts of funding to Wisconsin. And then we've also are leading on a few grant programs at the federal level, the Department of Energy Improvements in Rural Areas, which our office was the main applicant for, but we were able to do 100% pass-through funding to Bayfield County and Red Cliff, and then several cities in Bayfield to install microgrids. I think 21 solar and storage on government facilities in northern Wisconsin, which is really exciting. And then we're also working on the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant Program, which I will talk about in a sec. So that's our office. This is our team. Many of you know Maria. She's the best boss ever and our fearless leader. Me and Katie work on the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant Program. I do outreach, and then Katie is the technical coordinator and analyst. So she's working with contractors and doing emissions kind of projections herself. So, you know, how much will a strategy reduce greenhouse gas emissions in a certain amount of time? She's working on the low-income and disadvantaged community benefits analysis, workforce development analysis, some of those technical pieces that I can talk about, but can't actually do. Winston is our newest team member. He's doing lead by example. Yes, and he's also, I believe he's at least a member of the art collective at 350, which he keeps very delineated from his work in our office. But he's doing a really, really great job helping reduce emissions in state operations. So if the state is going to put forth these plans for the public sector and local governments and tribal nations to reduce emissions, then the state operations should also be striving towards net zero. So he's working specifically on capturing funding from direct pay, so getting tax credits for different renewable energy installations or fleet electric vehicles, which is a big job, and he's doing a great job. Genesee is our Climate and Clean Energy Initiatives Coordinator, and she is working on a climate and clean energy workforce inventory, and helping with some CPRG pieces. She's also provides kind of one-on-one technical assistance to folks who reach out, whether it's a local government that's looking to create a climate action plan or a business that wants to install solar panels. While our office doesn't necessarily have the resources or run the programs, she can help get you connected to the folks in the state who do. So kind of the first point of contact for people that are interested in this work. And she's also a full-time student getting her master's in public policy. So that's us. Here's just a timeline kind of overview of what some of our work over the past few years have been. Created via executive order, and then we released the Governor's Task Force on Climate Change report in 2020, which was a set of strategies that informed the Clean Energy Plan, which we released in 2022. I joined at the end of, like a few months before the release of the Clean Energy Plan. Coming from the Clean Energy Plan came a lot of action and progress towards the strategies that were outlined in the plan. The Office of Environmental Justice was created. The Green Ribbon Commission was created to advise on creating the state's first ever green bank to help create affordable financing for clean energy projects. And Maria has done, and our office has done yearly progress reports since the release of the Clean Energy Plan, which I would definitely recommend checking out. I think they are, oh yes, they are linked here. So I can put that in the chat. It's exciting to see all of the momentum towards the strategies in the plan that are outlined in the progress reports. And now our office is working on the Comprehensive Climate Action Plan, which was created, which was funding given to us from the Environmental Protection Agency. So, and then we'll have these slides sent out so you can, all of these are linked so you can see them too. So the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant was through the US EPA. All states, this was formula funding, so all states were offered $3 million to create a priority climate action plan and a comprehensive climate action plan and a status report. I believe 47 states accepted the funding. So 47 states developed a priority climate action plan and are working on a comprehensive climate action plan. Additionally, metropolitan statistical areas, Milwaukee, the Southeastern Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission is working on a CCAP or Comprehensive Climate Action Plan. And then St. Croix and Pierce counties are wrapped into the Minneapolis MSA. And I believe Kenosha is part of the Chicago MSA. So this is an exciting program because all states are working on creating a comprehensive climate, well, all except 3 that didn't accept the funding, are working on creating a comprehensive climate action plan. And the second phase of this program was implementation application. So once states submitted their priority climate action plan in March, Wisconsin submitted it and called it the Emissions Reductions Roadmap. $4 billion was available for implementation funding to implement measures that were in the priority climate action plan. So Wisconsin did submit an implementation application for 170 million roughly. Unfortunately, we did not receive the funding, but it was an extremely competitive program because all states were going after the funding. Local governments were also eligible to apply under state plans, and tribal nations had a separate competition. So Wisconsin submitted an application. We were part of 3 coalition applications, and unfortunately that did not go through, but the work goes on, and 2 tribal nations in Wisconsin did receive implementation funding. So that was really exciting because it was a little sad for a minute that Wisconsin didn't get any of the funding. But we're moving forward, and now we're working on a comprehensive climate action plan, which is due in December of 2025. So we have a little more time than we did to do the priority climate action plan and the implementation application. So we're looking to create an actionable plan that builds off all of the work that we've already done in previous planning efforts through the Clean Energy Plan and the Governor's Task Force on Climate Change. And then in 2027, we'll have to submit a status report to EPA showing that we actually reduced emissions because of implementing strategies that we're in. So the Comprehensive Climate Action Plan has to be actionable relative to targets, sector-specific targets, relative to the greenhouse gas inventory, addressing our highest emitting sectors, relative to authority to implement. Given Wisconsin's current political situation, are we able to actually, is this legislation that we would have to pass policy for, or is this a program? Are we able to actually implement it? And if not, what is the pathway to get there? And then it has to be ambitious, it has to meet our targets, but also be Wisconsin specific, recognizing that not all strategies will be applicable in Wisconsin. And then achievable. It has to, again, align with targets and be economically and technically feasible. For each strategy, there has to be a funding crosswalk identifying relative funding opportunities, relevant funding opportunities with each strategy. So given that I am not outreach engagement specialist for this program specifically, working on creating the Comprehensive Climate Action Plan, we asked ourselves when we received this funding and as we were creating these plans, what does authentic community engagement look like in this context, and how do we do it? This is a quote that I share often in presentations and come back to a lot in my work, that really to me, authentic community engagement is building trust across the state with different stakeholders and creating and building relationships. And ultimately, that's how change is going to happen. And that is a key way to address the climate crisis, building trust and relationships. So we kind of took a step back and thought about what some of our organizing values would be to do authentic community engagement and to build relationships. A few of them are kind of outlined here. And we created the Climate Action Navigators Network based off of these organizing values, with the goal of authentic community engagement and transformative climate action, looking at implementing a collective impact model, which basically recognizing that many small changes implemented in alignment create the conditions for large-scale change. We may not have the power to change laws or fix everything, but bringing people together and fostering collaboration can create the conditions for great transformation. So we created the Navigators Network, a highly connected and interdependent network of leaders from all walks of life that can rapidly diffuse the knowledge and resources to empower local to statewide decision-making and action. So how can we set up? We wanted to set up a living feedback loop with organizations like 350 Wisconsin, like other nonprofit organizations, local governments, tribal nations that are doing the work, that are implementing projects, in our office who is creating these kind of high-level statewide plans. And how can we make sure that both groups are in conversation with each other? So this is a busy graphic which shows some of the elements of the Climate Action Navigators, or We Can. I'll talk a little bit more about the Innovation Incubator and then our community engagement approach for getting the comprehensive climate action plan done, but also fostering conversations among different folks about what they see in Wisconsin's future. So the Open Space and Innovation Incubator has been a fun process to go through. It's been a little, we're not sure what to expect at every next step. So in August, we brought this group together, the Climate Action Navigators, for the third time in Stevens Point, and we ran through what we're calling an innovation incubator process. So basically, we had folks pitch project ideas, align with other organizations that were interested in also working on the project, create final presentations, evaluate their own presentations, their own project presentations, and evaluate others. And then our office is hoping to be able to fund these projects that increase equity and environmental justice, that steward authentic community engagement, that empower community decision-making, and that catalyze transformative climate action. So we had 22 proposed and this was in 3 days that people did this. We had 22 collaborative projects proposed, which was really exciting, kind of all across the board of what the projects were. 350 was a part of several projects that were proposed, yeah. But they led on a Public Service Commission engagement toolkit. The Wisconsin Climate Hub is a storytelling project and a way to kind of centralize resources related to climate action. There's residential IRA working group to help residents understand how they can take advantage of Inflation Reduction Act credits. A small business incubator for Latino small businesses, workshops to educate local governments on nature-based solutions all across the board. It's really exciting to see all of these projects basically get from pitch to presentation in 3 days, and see so many people kind of working together and collaborating to get these projects done. And we're getting really close to be able to get some money out the door to support these projects. It's been a little bit of it's been difficult to work through some of the bureaucracy, but we want to be diligent and make sure that we're doing it the right way. So more information coming soon on those. And then we also worked through the Climate Action Navigators to set up sector-specific advisory teams to inform the development of the comprehensive climate action plan. So these started in August, but there will be a lot of opportunity in 2025 for the teams to remain active, to give input on the draft measures that are in the plan. And right now, still, people are drafting measures to actually include in the plan or inform the development of the plan. So these are really designed for technical experts who are experts in their field, the sectors you can see on the screen that we're working with. And I think we were looking for additional engagement in agriculture and waste and materials. So I encourage you to sign up. I can send a link in the chat. If you're interested in registering, it's definitely not too late to join. And we would be happy to kind of meet individually to get you up to speed if that's something you're interested in. Totally voluntary, but just an opportunity to get involved. And then while the sector advisory teams are kind of designed for the technical subject matter experts, I have been traveling around the state and having conversations with community members who are interested in being involved in this work, or to understand kind of people's lived experiences on the ground who aren't necessarily doing this every single day. So on, maybe it's on the big picture of me in the dress outside, that was in Bayfield. We had a small, someone hosted, a navigator hosted a dinner party, and we did some small group discussion at the end. At the checkered table was in Milwaukee at a salmon feast. Salmon fishermen shared their spoils, and then I had a table and interviewed people with those questions. And then on the bottom was in Milwaukee at the Forward Together Wisconsin meeting, where we did a breakout session. And we've asked, I've tried to be pretty consistent with asking the same 5 questions, kind of focused on, what do you feel like you can do to combat climate change? Do you feel the impacts of climate change? What do you want your community to look like in 2050? What barriers do you face? And then I always want to end on, what are you hopeful about? What do you see in your everyday life that makes you hopeful? Really want to combat like nihilism, I think, that a lot of younger generations are feeling in terms of climate change. So I last week I went to a UW capstone class and had conversations with them. And then we're taking all of this data. We have a public survey too. And in the next month or two, doing some qualitative analysis to understand what common themes are coming up, and creating a report for the advisory teams to look at as they develop draft measures, and for the internal teams too. We also worked with an artist to create a poetry board that we've been bringing to events. This was at a music festival in Rhinelander at Project North. It was an awesome event. But we're able to put questions on the board, and then she hand carved words, magnetic words, and so people can, like fridge magnet poetry, if you're familiar. People can kind of create poetry, use chalk, draw pictures to answer the questions. So I'll definitely, I would love to include pictures of some of these in the plan, but definitely in the report. Another way that you can get involved is the Climate Fast Forward conference. We've been working really closely with the Wisconsin Academy to ensure that conversations had at the conference directly inform our plan. So there will be 5 collaborative spaces, which are based on the sectors that will be in the CCAP, and we'll have ways for people to report out that we'll take that data for our analysis too. It's coming up this week in Rothschild, Wisconsin. So if you're in the area or you're not in the area and you want to make the drive, they've hosted it 2 previous years. It's a really great networking opportunity and a really good way to get involved in the CCAP. They still have discounted registration available. Otherwise, you should reach out to me because we're a sponsor and we have some free registration. So I can definitely get you signed up if you're interested in attending and haven't registered yet, but that's a great way to get involved as well. There's some resources we pulled together about the Inflation Reduction Act. And that is all I had. Definitely sign up for our newsletter. If you haven't, it's new and it's exciting that we have a newsletter now. And yeah, I'll stop sharing and would love to answer questions.
Thank you so much, Katelynn. So I'm going to be helping to field questions for Katelynn. Please feel free to put them in the chat or use your raise hand function if you have a question. But I see Christina has put one in the chat, and it was something I was thinking about as well. Since you've been traveling around the state, Katelynn, and talking to a lot of different groups, are there any preliminary impressions you have from the CCAP community engagement events?
Yeah.
And maybe are you seeing areas of commonality? We know we're very polarized in this state. We know that all too well. Just wondering, what you're seeing as you talk to different groups.
Yeah. I think something that I hear almost every time, which isn't surprising, is people want more green space in their communities, more trees. Green roofs have come up a surprising amount of times. I think maybe because I've been to a lot of climate related events. I think safe streets and public transportation is also something that comes up frequently. People want to be able to get to work and not have to drive, be able to take the bus or bike. Biking, safe streets for biking is something that has come up a lot. And yeah, I think transportation is something that people is top of mind for people, especially when it comes to climate change and like reducing emissions. Most people have said they feel impacted by climate change, and people are also hopeful about the future. So there's lots of pressure on the youth, I will say, to move things forward, and I push back on that a little bit because it's good to be hopeful, but there's a lot that we can do now that everyone can do regardless of their age. So yeah, it's a good question. But I will definitely want to share out or I think make some way to share some of the results once we actually do the analysis on the interview questions with folks.
Great, thank you. So I have another question here from Susan Millar. Does the Climate Action Plan have a plan for reducing emissions produced by the entities that provide our state's energy, the investor-owned utilities? Great question.
That is a good question. And I'm not sure that I have a great answer to it right now. I think some of my partners will or may have better answers, but I mean, yes, like supporting utility scale renewables and ensuring that they're also playing their part in helping reduce emissions was part of the Clean Energy Plan, part of the Governor's Task Force on Climate Change, and while and it will be part of the CCAP.
Thank you. Well, feel free to follow up, with us if you have any more information on that. We can share that back out to our group.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's another great question. How are you dealing with considerations of environmental justice in decision making?
Yeah, that is a really good question too. I mean, I think a big part of ensuring that disadvantaged communities and overburdened communities who have felt the biggest impacts of climate change also feel the benefits from transitioning to a clean energy economy. Is part of that is the working through the climate action navigators to support projects that are really focused on working with underserved communities and that are led by underserved communities. So that's one piece of it is through the climate action navigators and through some of the projects that were proposed. Environmental justice was a central piece in the Clean Energy Plan and will also be in the CCAP. In my work, I think working through the climate action navigators to ensure that all projects have environmental justice as the kind of central piece of their work has been the way that I have been addressing it in my work, I suppose.
Okay, it looks like we have time for just one more quick question. I think this one from Kermit might be a little bit easier to answer in the time we have left. He references the funding that you have to do community engagement, and how might 350 Wisconsin take advantage of that to support your outreach work?
Yeah, I mean, I think that funding will be around after, in the coming months. Once we have a draft plan, there will be another push for community engagement to get feedback on the draft plan. So I would say I would love to come back to one of these meetings and kind of share a draft plan with you all and get some feedback on it. But also, as you all are hosting events, let me know, and I would love to come and interview community members. And yes, we would be able to reimburse costs for that. But
That sounds great. So I know we're moving on, but if you maybe could put in the chat, or maybe we can discuss it in the breakout, but how can 350 Wisconsin members contribute to the survey, the public survey that you're doing?
Yeah, I totally forgot to mention that, but I will put a link in the chat if anyone is interested in taking.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's great.
That was so informative. Thank you, Katelynn.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining. And there'll be a chance to chat a little more with Katelynn at the end of the meeting when we do breakouts. So I know we didn't get to everyone's questions, and so please, if you're able, if you have the bandwidth and want to stick around, please do. So Lee, I think you can bring up the slides, and I'm going to turn it over to Kelly for announcements.
Okay, thank you. So first we're going to have Emily Park, one of our co-executive directors, give a couple of announcements.
Hi, everybody. Apologies if you can't hear me or see me very well. I'm having some technical difficulties tonight, so I'm calling in from my cell phone. I just wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you to each and every one of you who volunteered and gave your time and your money to the election work. As Stephanie mentioned earlier this evening, I know things were disappointing, but this group, 350 Wisconsin Action, turned out an amazing effort. There were 4 art collective actions, which included 2 flash mobs on the 350 Wisconsin Action side, and 2 parade appearances, one here in Madison and one up in La Crosse. We're still tabulating our final numbers, but we know that we knocked on over 3,000 doors, most of which were deep canvassing doors. So really the goal of having a deep conversation with people. We called over 6,000 people. We wrote about 6,000 postcards. There were over 13,000 relational organizing conversations, so people talking with their peers, their friends, their family. We had almost 9,000 tracked conversations with students on campuses. So we focused on the UW Madison, Eau Claire, Stevens Point, La Crosse, Platteville, Stout, and River Falls campuses, plus thousands and thousands of additional student and community contacts that we weren't tracking and counting. So just a really, really, really tremendous effort. And the photo there on the bottom right is of a group of people who were canvassing in, I think, the La Crosse area. So next, please. It's easy to look at the election results and think, what did we achieve? But the answer is we were actually very impactful. I think we obviously want to be realistic about the next few years, but I think it's also important to celebrate what we did manage to achieve. So 350 Wisconsin Action had identified a handful of state Senate districts and state assembly districts where we were really, really prioritizing voter outreach. And in all 4 of our priority state Senate districts, we are the person we endorsed won. And in 6 of the 10 priority state assembly districts, we saw victories. And many of those districts were very, very, very close. Some of them were not called until later in the day on Wednesday. Overall, the Democrats gained 10 seats in the Assembly and 4 seats in the Senate, the state Senate. So that means that Republicans no longer hold a supermajority. They do still hold a majority, but it's a much thinner margin than they used to. So starting in 2025, the Senate will be 54.5% Republican, and the Assembly will also be about 54.5% Republican, and that is down from over 2/3 Republican. So this means that they no longer have the power to override the governor's veto. So if the Assembly and Senate were to pass something terrible and Governor Evers were to veto it, the legislature cannot do anything about that. So we've really protected the governor's veto power. And then at the federal level, we reelected Senator Tammy Baldwin. Her margins in Wisconsin were she won by about 30,000 votes. And that's pretty close to the number of people we contacted. So I think we can give ourselves a pat on the back and say that was all due to us. If you were following the national Senate races, hers was considered one of the most vulnerable and the most critical Senate seats for the Democrats to stay, for them to stay in power. So I think we can really be proud of ourselves for what we achieved there. Next slide, please. So what's next? I know this is probably not what everyone wants to hear, but there's another election coming up. Just in the spring, we're going to be engaging with the Wisconsin Supreme Court, or SCOE election. Once again, this election will determine whether it is a liberal or conservative majority on the state Supreme Court. It is currently a liberal majority, but one of the liberal justices is retiring. So those of you who were with us in 2023 when we elected Janet Protasewicz, we're going to spool back up again and do that again this spring. Really taking our lessons from this current election cycle and seeing how we can be effective again. And then even though the results at the state level and the federal level were not what we expected or hoped for, we can still continue to leverage our grassroots power. And I would argue that it's even more important now than ever before to be pushing for that climate action at every level of government, demonstrating to elected officials, to agencies, to everybody that people, no matter what their political background, want to see climate action. So we are going to continue to be a critical part of the landscape, and looking forward to having you all be part of that. Thanks.
Thank you, Emily. So next, Kristen Clark, our development manager, will talk about Giving Tuesday, which is coming up.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kristen, and I'm so excited to talk to you guys about our very exciting and fun event where we will all be together on December 3rd, celebrating our work from this past year and raising some funds to fuel our work in 2025. This is a really, really important fundraiser for us as an organization to make sure that we can sustain all of the great work we're doing on so many different fronts in partnership with so many different organizations and groups and individuals, both here in Wisconsin as well as national partners and allies, and keep up the good fight for climate change and climate justice. And so how we do that is through, raising funds together for this work. And so our in-person event is at the Goodman Community Center. This is different from previous years. We're excited to be over on the east side and to see you all there on the evening of December 3rd. We're also really excited to announce that my former boss, former Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes, will be at the event and will share a few words with us all as well. Wanted to also announce and let you all know that we have another really exciting online auction that will be happening. It will be open November 23rd through December 4th. We've been working really hard on getting back everyone's favorite auction items as well as some really exciting new auction items. And so, we're very excited for folks to see that and participate in that. Also, it is not too late if you would like to donate an item or a Skillshare. You can do that as well. So feel free just to reach out. Additionally, we are looking for people in our community and organization to be Giving Tuesday ambassadors, which just means that you help us fundraise for this really important time of year. So you can provide funds to be a match donor. You can, donate early, or you can be a peer-to-peer fundraiser, which just means you share your story, your connection with 350 Wisconsin, why you are with 350 Wisconsin with your friends and family, and let them know that they can support this cause. And then also, if you would like to volunteer with us the night of, you can reach out to Nikki. Both her and my emails are listed on the slide. And so, yeah, we look forward to seeing you all on Tuesday, December 3rd, and joining us for this really important night.
Thank you, Kristen. That's very helpful. It's exciting to hear that Mandela Barnes is going to be there. That's great. So as Katelynn mentioned, the Climate Fast Forward Conference is coming up this week, and it's going to be up in Rothschild. You could still register for it. I think that the registration link will be in the chat. And I've been to the last ones and they're very good. So it's definitely worth going to if you're available for that. Anybody else need to say anything else about the Climate Fast Forward Conference? Emily, Stephanie, anybody?
Yeah, I would say if you're interested in volunteering in exchange for free admission to the conference, shoot me an email or shoot Nikki an email, and we can probably still make that happen. I know it's just coming up in a few days, but yeah, send us an email.
Great, thank you. Okay, Margot Kennard is going to, from the Climate Justice team, is going to mention a film screening that if you didn't catch it earlier, it's available again.
Yes, so the Climate Justice team decided, rather than meet by Zoom this month, to all attend this screening that will happen at the university campus at the Shannon Hall on November 18th, on Thursday. And I know a lot of people have already seen the Bad River film, but this is an opportunity to see it together. And also there'll be a panel that will talk afterwards. And so is there more information? I thought there was more information that was supposed to be up here as far as registering. Do you know where that is?
Yeah, that'll be in the link that's in the chat.
Oh, there's a link in the chat.
So yes, you're supposed to register for this ahead of time.
Okay. So yeah, I don't think that you don't have to have tickets, or I think they just want to know how many people are coming. So they're just asking people to register. And if you need more information on the Nelson, the Nelson Institute for Environmental Studies at the university, their website, nelson.wisc.edu, under events, will also have a place for more information and also to register. So nelson@wisc.edu. We also are going to meet at 5 o'clock in the Rathskeller beforehand and just kind of gather. So you're all welcome to come to that also. I think that's all.
Okay, thanks, Margot.
Unless anybody else has anything to add.
Okay, I think that covers it. It's a great film. If you haven't seen it, definitely worth going to. Kermit Hovey has a announcement about a climate action meeting coming up. Kermit?
Yes, thanks. Thanks very much, Kelly. The next Faiths Connect for Climate Action meeting will be tomorrow. It'll be on the power of climate stories to engage your congregation. It'll be starting at 7 p.m. on Zoom. I'm going to be popping the link to register into the chat, and we'll be talking about the power of climate stories to engage others in climate action, and we'll help people come up with their own compelling climate story to tell. I'll also squeeze in a quick announcement for the Dane County Youth Climate Conference, which is coming up this Saturday. It's targeted at youth, of course, so if you have any middle school, junior high, college age folk that you know of who are concerned or should be concerned about the climate crisis, this is especially for them. I believe 350 Wisconsin is going to have a table there as well. And so spread the word if there's anybody you're mentoring or know of that could really benefit from it. Oh, and let's not forget OSCE will have a table there as well. And I'm popping the link into the chat also for the Dane County Youth Conference.
Okay, thanks,
Thanks.
Kermit. Do we want to remind everybody that we will not be having a regular monthly meeting in December because it would be on December 2nd and we have Giving Tuesday on December 3rd and we want everyone to go to Giving Tuesday. And so we will be skipping the monthly meeting for December. And so now we just want to mention some of the upcoming team meetings. We have a lot of our groups meet on Mondays and Tuesdays, so you can see the meeting times there on the screen. And there are, we have a lot of teams. So if you have any questions about what some of these teams do, then you might want to contact the contact person that's down there for each one of them. The next slide, please. And we have several other teams here too. Why don't we leave this up while we have Russ jump on and talk specifically about what he wants to say about the Art Collective team.
Sure. And Diane, plug in if I miss something here. Giving Tuesday is such a great celebration but we decided that some of us might be more celebratory if we can go someplace else first, which is to sort of acknowledge where we're at right now after the election. Some of us are exhausted. Some of us are not sure what to think, but we know for sure one thing we can do is we can be together. And so the Art Collective is going to be meeting November 24th from 2 to 4 p.m. Just basically to have a very limitedly facilitated listening and sharing of where people are at. And you're welcome to come for any part of that. We'd love to have more of 350 join this particular meeting. We're just going to try and listen to each other and share where we're at. We don't know where yet because we don't know how many people are interested in this. If it's 10 or 20 people, we'll be meeting at Richard's house or my house. If it's much more than that, maybe we'll find another spot. But I put my email in the chat, bennett.russ@gmail.com. Let me know if you're interested, and we'll make sure that when the location is set, that you're in the loop on that. I guess that's it.
Okay, and what was that date, Russ?
November 24th is a Sunday,
Okay.
2 to 4.
Okay, now I'll pass it back over to Christina.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly, and thanks everyone for your announcements and continued organizing. I'll just highlight something that was thrown in the chat that Tar Sands is meeting tomorrow. They didn't meet at their normal time, but if you want to join this month, that's the time. So with that, we are into our closing breakouts, and so I'm gonna stop the recording. And